Good evening, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us. I'm Kathy Hassler, the Vice President of the HIDA Board of Directors and Chair of HIDA's Program Committee. My co-hosts are HIDA volunteer Kimball McCann, Secretary for the HIDA Board and a member of the Program Committee, and Margaret Higa, HIDA's Executive Director. October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. And what a great way to close out the month with this inaugural Educator Spotlight. We invite you to visit the website gofordyslexia.org for more information on some creative and fun ways to reclaim read. Before I turn it over to Margaret to formally introduce Cindy, I'd like to take a moment to thank all our members, donors, and sponsors for their support in bringing events like this presentation to our community. Your tremendous support allows us to help carry out HIDA's mission across our state. Some additional logistics we'd like to point out. Your audio video has been turned off, and we kindly ask that everyone keep their audio and video off throughout this presentation so that we may provide a clear experience, as well as please keeping any personal recording features off as well to protect the privacy of students within the presentation. You're welcome to ask questions and enter them into the chat box where Margaret, Kimball, and I will monitor and chat, and Cindy will respond periodically. And I will now ask Margaret to introduce Cindy.
I thank you, Kathy and Kimball. Let me just change this. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So we're thrilled this evening to have Cindy Thurman as our first speaker for our inaugural Educator Spotlight. As you can see from Cindy's brief bio on the screen, she's a veteran educator who has many years of experience in working with students who have language-based learning differences, including several of my own children. Cindy has been trained in Orton Gillingham and other structured literacy approaches. But perhaps most importantly and awe-inspiring, which you don't see on here, Cindy is a gorilla wrestler. Cindy, care to explain before you get started on your presentation?
My favorite quote that's on my email is, it's a little like wrestling a gorilla. You don't quit when the gorilla is tired. You don't quit when you're tired, you quit when the gorilla is tired. The other quote I'm considering is, outside of a dog, a book is a man's best friend, but inside of a dog, it's too dark to read.
I love it. Thanks. I think it's going to be an incredibly enjoyable and informative evening. And so Cindy, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. As Margaret was saying, I've been at Assets for a really long time. When the kids are talking to me and, they get something wrong, I always tell them, don't worry, I'm 5 times your age, So yes, I've been here a long time. And hopefully I can stay here a lot longer. So without further ado, we'll get started. And I guess I should, so sorry, the part that I do really, this is the inaugural one, so I guess I can make some mistakes, but I really do enjoy teaching students to read and to enjoy books, whether it's listening to books or decoding words on their own. And I think the methodologies that we use and the programs we use and the approach that we take to dyslexia and other language-based learning difficulties really helps kids to see themselves as learners. And just as, they're excited to decode a word, I'm, right there with them rooting for their successes. So I guess we'll start off, and I should say that, I'm hoping to give you some tips and tricks, that you can take away with you. I really enjoy events like this where I can use something, the very next day and, pull it out of my hat. And so, I'm not saying that this replaces getting trained. I really hope that you have the opportunity to be trained in a multisensory literacy approach or language approach, at some point in the future. And I know Haida is really going to help you connect with that. So remember to, connect with their news bulletins. But we'll start off talking about decoding and reading. I think it's really important to encourage your child to read anything they want. Even books that they've read over and over, especially since that kind of exposure to those words repeatedly can help broaden their sight word base or their automaticity in recognizing words, and remembering that pictures are super important in comprehending too. Of course, don't worry about whether it's at grade level or it's what you want them to read. I really think about it as nobody sits down and, at the end of the day, well, and not even the guys on Big Bang Theory, nobody sits down and, picks up a physics book, when they're looking for free reading. It's okay to read what they want. Whoops. And it's okay to skip reading if it's been a hard day. You don't want reading to be something that's more frustrating or makes a bad day worse. On those days, listen to an audiobook. There's nothing that says, you have to read every day, or the world will end. Taking time to just enjoy being a kid and enjoy your child is really important too. I found that creating a reward system helps. If you're a teacher, the Book It, the Pizza Hut rewards program is still going on. I think you can register online, but creating a reward system to encourage your child or your student to read is really important. It's important to start at something really small, easy peasy, so that they can attain that goal without a lot of difficulty or frustration, and then increase that goal as they get, become more proficient. At school, we still do, in my classroom, we still try to do drop everything and read, and that we call that dear time. And it's an important time to sit and, just read. And when I talk about reading, I'm also talking about, listening to audiobooks. My students are listening to Epic and Tumble Books and Newsomatic. But when you're at home and you want your child to read, I think it's really important to turn off the TV and put away the phone, because if, brother Billy Joe Jim Bob is, on his computer and you're making, Sally Sue Flim Flam read her book, Sally Sue is going to resent that time, and that's not going to feel very fair. So I think it's really important to honor the time that, you're asking your child to read with everybody reading at the same time, as much as possible. When you go to read and you've picked a book that is within your child's reading level, one thing to note is that if you have a Lexile score from 50 to 100 more is a good kind of, challenging level. But it's important, because reading is difficult and can be, a little bit more exhausting for some students. It's important to outward children take turns by sentences or paragraphs when practicing reading with your child. Some parents, and some, I've not done it as an educator, but I know some parents, they pick one book for reading aloud where they read to their child at their intellectual level. And then there's another book that the child reads aloud that's at their, their in a little bit more independent instructional level. When you're reading, when your child is reading and you're looking for more of comprehension and they come across a word they don't know, it's okay to supply the entire word after 3 seconds because you're looking more for fluency and comprehension as opposed to practicing decoding skills. It's also okay not to correct mistakes if it doesn't change the meaning of the text. So, say somebody says kids for children or those kinds of words, as long as it doesn't change the meaning of the passage. And when you're reading together with your child, it's really neat for you to model your thinking about the text, discuss the characters, their actions, and the plot at key happenings in the story. That really helps you to understand what your child is comprehending. and it helps them to understand what kind of thought processes you're putting into reading. It's really fun to make predictions with your child, and then to see how it turns out. Explaining why you think that will happen is also really useful for them in understanding how predictions are made. As a teacher, I've actually had students, flat out refuse to read because in some society situations and in some communities, reading is equated to intelligence. And of course, we know that's not true, that, even to have a language-based learning difficulty or disability, you have to be average to above average intelligence. So, if you have a child a student that's, really anxious about reading, either, save reading practice for another time, or let them practice passages, the night before they are, set to read them to the class. And, you don't want to make it, a big deal, because this is part of their, their identity and their sense of security. You want to make it kind of low key, would you like to read now? And, and for some students, it's okay to let them say no. That, I think it's important to respect, their, not necessarily boundaries, but their sense of comfort. I think it's also super important to remember that, nobody decides that they don't want to read. Well, okay, in my 30 years of doing this, I've never had a student say, I don't want to learn to read. A lot of the things that students do and children do, when reading is difficult, looks like they don't want to, or it's boring, or they're tired, or they have a headache, or they have to go to the bathroom, or they need some water. All of those are, coping mechanisms, and difficulties in reading are not laziness, not at all. If you look at that sentence, and I called on somebody out in the audience to read it, that might make you feel anxious. And, that's the way it feels to a student who has reading difficulties. And it says, very few of us would pick up books or any text for free reading if it was this difficult, and to that helps to put it in perspective. I hope that that's what it looks like to a child, perhaps, and maybe it even looks more confusing to a child who has reading difficulties. I think it's really important to, of course, find that just right book that, for my daughter, it was Dragon Rider. And we were just talking about it yesterday, how that was the book that unlocked it all. But it took a long way to get her to Dragon Rider. While students are, on that pathway, decodable texts give them an opportunity to read and be more successful, because it's not leveling. It's not a leveled text, but it's decodable texts are introducing sounds within a scope and sequence of a structured literacy program, so that students have already been taught those sounds. So for instance, if I haven't taught OU, ouch, ow, I wouldn't have a decodable text with that in it, so it gives the students an opportunity to practice what they're learning, instead of, having them be all over the place with all different kinds of sounds that they're trying to, incorporate into their reading. The ones that I have the most exposure and the most, have used the most is Spire. I've really enjoyed Remedia Publications. I wouldn't necessarily, say that's a decodable text, but it is high interest, low reading level. The Literacy Nest is really neat. This is Emily, oh my goodness, I can't remember her name, but Emily Gibbons. And she actually writes her own decodable text and has it paired with the Orton Gillingham scope and sequence. Reading Rockets is really great, just as a general website, but within their website, they have a really neat book finder. And all of these links should work, fingers crossed. When you get the slides, Bookfinder allows children to, and you, to help them find books that, speak to different genres and different different, locations and different age groups. It's really great. I've used it with students. And then they also have decodable text sources. They had a whole list of places and other books that you can find decodable text. And then of course, High Noon Books is another one that has decodable texts. The books on the bottom aren't necessarily decodable texts, but they're some of my favorite. Dogman, Fly Guy, Elephant and Piggy, Franny K. Stein, she's kind of like the girl Frankenstein. Of course, Frog and Toad is an old favorite. Narwhal and Jelly, Magic Tree House. The Smile books are graphic novels, but also really fun. I Can Read books are great. And then the Step Into Reading books are also great resources for books that are easier for students to tackle and, give them that success that they need to feel on their journey toward, being more self-sufficient as readers. So one thing that has been really helpful in encouraging children to find books that meet their, their capability levels is the 5-finger rule. And so, and you don't have to be, specially trained or anything. Your child opens the book to the first page. They read the page, and you can help. You don't necessarily have to have them do this part, but you can also monitor how many they get incorrect, and without you correcting them. Although I do have to say, I don't count names of people, but they count and they hold up a finger, or you count for every word that they get wrong, meaning they don't know it or they can't pronounce it. And then based on the number of fingers they're holding up, you can tell whether that book is an appropriate fit. 0 to 1 fingers, it's too easy. 2 to 3 fingers, it's just right. Or 4 to 5 fingers, it's a little bit too hard right now. And could make a great read aloud with a buddy. On the back, I unfortunately didn't pick up a book, but hopefully you've noticed on the back of books at the bottom, it says RL, and that's reading level. And that's usually done by fourth grade, 3rd month. So that would be like 4.3. And then of course, as I mentioned earlier, if you have a Lexile level based on testing that your school has done, anywhere from 50 to 100 Lexile points more is a good fit for, something challenging, but not frustrating necessarily. Scholastic Books had also had another great resource for finding books that meet your child's needs and, capability levels. And I mentioned just a moment ago that I tell students not to worry about reading a character's name correctly. And it's not that it's not important, because I know that we try to make, these days, not everybody is Sally, Jane, and Bob and Sam, but, trying to make it inclusive, culturally, but for students that have difficulty reading, that makes it one more hurdle. So, I usually pronounce it for them. And then if they get it incorrect after that, I don't harp on it. And I think it's okay, for a struggling reader to pronounce it the way that they kind of see it. Just making sure, of course, that it's connected to the correct pronoun. And that's not to say that I don't respect differences in pronouns, but at this point in books, they usually have, a gender specific pronoun, but hopefully maybe sometime down the road that will change. I look forward to that day. But that's where we are for the 5-finger rule. So going on, and before I go on, are there any questions? Because I'm going to head out of decoding, and there's so much more about decoding that I could go into. Except I'm not qualified to train you in Orton Gillingham or any structured literacy program. I can tell you one more thing, though, that I almost forgot. There's a saying that maybe you've heard before. When 2 vowels go walking, the first one usually does the talking. So for instance, if you have EA, that could say, well, it actually has 2 sounds. It says E as in eat, and it says eh as in head. But for instance, like OA, there's 2 vowels doing the walking, but the first one does the talking. So OA in boat says O. But anyway, let's
Cindy,
go ahead.
we do have a question. Who
Super.
was the author that followed Orton Gillingham?
So Orton Gillingham was the original, he's like the grandfather of it all. So he was and this is where we can always check back, but he was a psychologist, I believe, who identified dyslexia, and he actually called it word blindness. But the person that really applied Orton Gillingham's work to the classroom was, I should say, Samuel Orton. Who applied Samuel Orton's work to the classroom was Anna Gillingham. And then eventually Anna Gillingham worked with Beth Slingerland. So, I mean, but there's so many families under that big umbrella. And that's a whole other, webinar. I hope that helped.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions before Cindy moves on to spelling? Okay, I don't see any, Cindy.
Okay.
We can circle back later, though. If
Okay.
you think of a question, feel free to write it in the chat.
Okay, super. So thinking about spelling, I admit I used to tell the kids, this is, like it was the peasants, they couldn't spell, and it was all, Noah Webster's fault, he just made it up. And, as I became more educated, spelling isn't crazy. And this is a book by Diana Hanbury King, and she's passed away, but she's really, and still at the forefront of, educating students in dyslexia. I use her books. She's got great writing resources, but English isn't crazy really speaks to the part, that English is predictable. And I have at the bottom of the slide, I thought there were 85 consistent generalizations, but this particular site had 43. And it's really fascinating to find out that, English is more predictable maybe than a lot of us thought. For instance, no English word ends in I, J, or V. You have the E at the end of have, and ski doesn't count because that's Scandinavian. Other generalizations, are the way that we form our plurals. If a word ending in SH, X, CH, or S, you add ES. Everything else, you just add S. It also, a really neat trick is if the number of syllables changes when you add the suffix, then that is ES. For instance, if I say cat and I clap cat, and then I make more than one cat, it would still be cats. So that's just S. But if I say dress and I make dress, and that's one syllable, but then I make it plural, more than one, it becomes dresses. So when you make more than one and it increases in syllables, that's ES. And of course, later on, we're going to talk about how every syllable has to have a vowel part. So there are really some amazing generalizations that you can find within the English language. English Isn't Crazy is great. How to Teach Spelling is a really nice book. Unfortunately, I did not find the student workbooks still in print, but the How to Teach Spelling resource in and of itself is really helpful for seeing patterns in spelling and teaching students, what those patterns are. For instance, OW comes at the end of a word, and then it's often followed by L or N. So like in grow, but then you have grown or growl. So again, those kind of generalizations are really helpful and important, and a really important hallmark of a good multisensory literacy approach. We're kind of behind if we're just starting the History of English podcast. I think they're on something like 200, but it's really fascinating. I was listening to it on my my device, and some of the things that you learn are things that you can help the students understand better. They're like, for instance, if you think about the word month, like why does it say but we spell it with an O? And we can thank the scribes who didn't like the way the MU looked, and they liked the way MO looked better because there were too many up and down strokes. So those kinds of things are really fascinating and really bring the language alive for the students that you're teaching and for your kids. Who knows, you could have a whole conversation about the scribal O on your way home. So, some really important parts to spelling. Every syllable must have a vowel part. That's really crucial. There are a couple ways. I know that finger spelling is also the American Sign Language way of spelling out, and I can't do it. I'm sorry. That was my lame attempt to show you. But the finger spelling, when you're talking about a structured literacy approach, is where for every sound that a child is making in a word, each sound gets a corresponding finger. And there's a couple ways to do this. So you can do, like, if you can picture that, my hand is on the desk and I'm finger spelling, say, cat, it would go act. I know, hopefully I know you're seeing it the other way. I'll go this way, act. So you want to have it go from left to right. So the child's hand would be on the desk and they would go, they would tap, act. And that's really helpful so that they're hearing all of the sounds in the word. And another really important part of spelling is having the child repeat the word so that you are hearing what they're hearing, so that there's no, not no miscommunication, but it lessens the chance of miscommunication. So another way to do it that I am doing in the classroom is we grab the word. So we say the word brush and we grab the word and everybody repeats. So I say brush and everybody repeats it and we grab it at the same time. Brush. Sorry, the camera's funny. Brush. Sh. And then I'm making sure that they're hearing every sound. And then when they go to write, I'm asking them to sound out as they write. Sh. And then I'm asking them to check their work. I also, I don't have it on a slide, but I do let the students play educational language arts games while I'm waiting, while they're waiting for me as I'm coming around to each student. Some really great ones are, the kids really like Dreamscape, which is what they call a gamified reading app. And then they also really like Spell Tower. They enjoy Letter Quest. A lot of the kids really enjoy, oh goodness, now I've lost that train of thought. But the kids really enjoy playing language arts games. I'll have to send that to you later on. But the other thing that you could have children do if you don't want them playing games while they're waiting is for every sound that a child gets right. So like say brush, it would be brush, sorry, camera, brush, sh. So that could be worth 4 points if you're doing some kind of reward system in your classroom. So it's worth 4 points. And then, if they get it wrong, they could lose 1 point, but if they make that correction when you come around to them, they could get that point back. The other thing you can encourage them to do is, I call it language art. And so they can draw a little picture of a brush, or somebody brushing their hair, or so some kind of language art connection. They seem to enjoy that really very much as well. And then the other piece we sometimes do is to make it a little bit more exciting is if you have so for instance they got brush, so we had brush, sh. We have like a 12-sided die, and then we roll the die and we see how much it could be a bonus word, and then whatever the die comes up on, we multiply 4 times that, and then they could have a bonus word. And just to, I think this poem is really kind of funny, quirky. A moth is not a moth in mother, nor both in bother. I can't even read it. It's so funny. Broth in brother. And here is not a match for there, nor dear and fear for bear and pear. And then there's dose and rose and lose just look them up, and goose and choose, and quirk and work, and card and ward, and font and front, and word and sword, and do and go and thwart and cart. Come, I've hardly made a start. A dreadful language, why, man alive, I'd mastered it when I was 5. And of course that's speaking, not reading and not spelling. But I think that's a funny, quirky poem. And as I said earlier, explaining the history of the English language really makes it come alive and makes it easier to understand. And how all of the different languages contributed to English, so when we're spelling something with a sh sound, like, well, we're not spelling champagne, but anyway, so like chandelier, or we're talking about that, or we're reading that, that comes from the French, and CH that says k, that's the Greek, and that's where we get chord and chroma, and so it makes it really interesting, and it really brings it alive for the kids. So I do something called the single short vowel trap, and this is another generalization that's kind of neat. The rule, well, actually, I'll let the kids tell you. Go ahead, Kimball. In 3, 2, 1. Double the F, L, S, and E at the end of a short word after a single short vowel. Oh, shucks, you didn't get, well, I don't know, maybe my computer is laggy. 2, 1. Double.
Let me try unmuting myself real quick.
Okay. Ready in 3, 2, 1. Double the F, L, S, and E at the end of a short word after a single short vowel.
Awesome.
The kids will think that's hilarious when I tell them tomorrow. Anyway, so I won't jump, but the kids jump side to side. They go double, and then they say F, L, S, and Z. And this is tricky because you have to trace it backwards when you're in front of them. But so you jump double the F, L, S, and Z, and then we jump around and we point to our rears at the end, and then we go down short, and then we say word after, and we go single, short, and then they jump and go vowel. Are we going to try it again?
Sure, let me try real quick.
But they really like jumping around and doing that. In fact, they start to say it for other things too. 3, 2, 1. Double the F, L, S, and E at the end of a short word after a single short vowel. That's okay. No, it's all good. So shucks, I guess well, I won't embarrass myself. I won't jump around. So the other generalizations that match that, and I call it the single short vowel trap. And you'll see in a minute, there's the visual, my sophisticated artistic skills. So a while back, I started to tell the story that there was a spelling troll, and the unsuspecting spellers had to cross the bridge and get to the other side, but they were so cocky that they were like, oh, I can spell it, well, W-E-L, well. And of course, because they didn't think about the rule, the single short vowel trap, they fell into the trap, and the troll got to, nibble on them. So it's really funny. I'll walk around the classroom when we're spelling those sorts of words, and I'll say, and they'll know, oh, that's the spelling troll. So the single short vowel trap, you have to double the F, L, S, and Z at the end of a short word after a single short vowel. And of course, with everything, there's going to be an exception, but it's more consistent than not. Of course, you get bus and you get, his, but more consistent than not, you'll double. You'll see CK also, and you can do, so we say, when we trace that one and we do our little song and dance, we say, use CK to spell and we do our little thing at the end of a short word after a single short vowel. And DGE says J and TCH says Ch. And I think it's really important for them to, think about the placement of those spelling rules. And so as I'm coming around, I'll say, well, it looks like you have a short vowel. What do you know about short vowels and rules about short vowels? And they, usually that light goes on. And of course, before you're teaching this, you're teaching children about, short vowel sounds. And, that's coming up in the syllabication part, but that's all, intertwined in a good lesson that, a short vowel, the vowels like to say their name. They like to say, you can't see it, but I'm gonna put my arms out. A. Well, I guess you can see. A. But the consonants get so sick of them saying their name that they close the door. E, and the vowel says, ah, because it can't believe that the consonant would close the door on them. And E likes to say E. And we do this with the kids. E. And the E says, eh, because he's so surprised. And so that's your arms up, that's like a breathe, the marking for a short vowel sound. But anyway, so it's really neat. The kids enjoy that. And it's something that, we come back to. It's really important to cycle back when you're working on spelling skills so that the students don't forget those rules that you started at the beginning of the school year. That was a lot of information, and now I'm recorded for posterity, being goofy. Anyone have
That
a
was
question?
awesome, Cindy. Let's let you take a break, get a drink of water. Anybody, any
I'm on
questions?
adrenaline.
I mean, there's actually some nice comments here. Love that kinesthetic activity for the fizzle rule. So cute. Love how you actively engage all learners, Cindy. Inspiring.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so creative. Yes. No, that's great. Okay.
Well, this kind of presentation is fun because I can say anything.
But it's recorded, like
And
we
it's
said.
recorded.
Okay, if there's no questions at this time, then we'll let you get back to it.
In 3, 2. So I'm going to switch cameras and I'm going to show you that you can do, oops, I turned it off, that you can show multiple spellings. And this is another really neat thing. I don't know how many of you have used Jamboard, but this is a really neat thing from Google that you can use to connect with your students. Another one is Nearpod is really great. More about that on another, whoops, I guess I have to move that up. There we go. Can you see it okay?
Looks
I should
good.
use paper. Okay. So when you're thinking about, oh, am I echoing? Sorry. When you're thinking about multiple, actually, you know what, I'll use, I think it's kind of, it looks like it's got a lot of, word retrieval skills. It has a lot of glare on it. Okay, anyway, so you can do it with a simple piece of paper. So if you're teaching CK versus K, you can talk you've taught CK. Oh, does it? How's that better? Sorry.
It looks great, Cindy.
Oh, to you guys? Okay,
Yeah,
super.
yeah, it looks great.
So, you've taught CK that it's after a single, sorry, teacher writing. Well, actually should be better than that, short vowel. So you're saying that CK is after a single short vowel. And then you're also, after you've done that for, about a week and you've really reinforced it and the kids have that concept, the next thing you can do is teach them that after a consonant is when you use K. And after a long vowel. And then, the students might not be at this level when you get to teaching CK versus K, but eventually they'll also know it's after two vowels. So you can give the students practice in deciding whether it's going to be spelled with CK or K. So for instance, if I did the word stick, so we would grab the word stick, stick. Okay, I hear a single short vowel. I'm going to think about that. And then as I come around, I can even ask the students, you know, why did you choose CK? Okay, it's after a single short vowel. On the other hand, sometimes the kids hear a single short vowel and they then they automatically think about CK. So for instance, I might go ahead and do drink. Sorry, drink, ink. And so I hear that, I hear this short vowel, ink. And then, as I'm coming around, you know, the students might not catch that, but I'm coming around and I'm saying, well, you have CK. What is it after? Oh, it's after a consonant. Uh-oh, we got to put it. So some teachers bracket. I know that's something that definitely Slingerland does. You bracket it and then it's almost like it's not there anymore, but it lets you see the mistakes that the children are making so that you can do an error analysis and, you know, better inform your lesson. But then the student is gonna write it in that column. And then, you know, you're gonna give them practice, you know, with different words that follow that rule. For instance, you know, I could do cake, and I often get students that go cake, and then, you know, there's a whole other slew of things. There's two parts to that. Well, it's after a long vowel and the E can't jump all the way over to make the vowel say its name. Oh, okay, that goes over here. So you can do that with DGE versus GE, and you can do that with TCH versus CH. And that really helps the students to hone their, you know, their understanding of when to use CK, when to use K, and so on and so forth. So that's the multiple spellings piece. And let me switch back. Alrighty. That was, did I switch back? I did, good. Okay.
Apologies, Cindy. Yeah, I was trying to make your screen a little bit larger. I'm not sure if I did that, but can we just toggle back really quick to your?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, for sure. Hold on. Whoops. Wait, sorry. Here. Camera. Oh, now I'm big. Hold on, let me go back.
Yep.
Where'd my, sorry, hold on. Now I don't know where my camera went. Okay. Stop audio. But mine's not, sorry everyone. I don't have the option to choose. Where is my option to choose? Sorry, I don't have the option, Kimball, to choose. I have stop audio. We don't want to do that. There it is. Sorry. Okay. I was in a different, now I stopped the video. Okay, here we go. Does that work? No.
Looks great. Yeah.
That's great, Cindy. Thank you.
And what we can
Should I do one more?
Yeah, maybe one more, and we can also maybe take a picture and embed it for the presentation when we hand it out.
Okay, super. So I'll actually maybe I'll do one. I'll do TCH versus CH. How about that? So and these are also, this is really neat because you can see which is, you can talk about frequency and which is more common. Like, you know, TCH is less common than CH. So CH you have in the beginning, you have it again after a consonant, and then you have it after two vowels, or you have it after, well, and of course in the beginning. And TCH, you only have at the end of a word after a single short vowel. So for instance, if I did the word bench, I'd grab it, bench, b-e-n-ch. And so I'm hearing a short vowel. So I might be tempted to put it over here, but then I got a consonant right before it. Okay, bench. So I'm on a roll. So let me do the next one. I'm gonna do stitch. Stitch. Okay, stitch. Stitch. And it's a good day for me. I've really got my rules down. And then I'm cruising and I'm like, all right, smooch. All right. Smooch. Oh. And then the teacher comes around and she says, oh, I see you have 2 vowels there. What do you know about TCH? Can it be with 2 vowels? And shucks. All right. How's that? And then I think that does it. Does that help it a little bit? I think my lovely school internet is not so hot.
No, it looks great. Thanks, Cindy,
Okay.
for doing that. Before you head on, we just have a question. If you
Okay.
wouldn't mind, please repeating what you said earlier, something about children being average or above average if they have dyslexia. So someone is just asking if you could
Yes.
speak to that.
You know, that's and that's part of being diagnosed as dyslexic. One of the things that you, in order to be, meet the criteria for that exceptionality, you have to fall within the average range. And this probably a psychologist could speak more to that. Not probably, definitely a psychologist could speak more to this. But in order to be diagnosed as part of the DSM-5, I believe it is, you have to meet certain criteria, and one of those is be of average to above average intelligence. And so, typically a student who is, say like, has an IQ in the 70s or 60s, they wouldn't meet the criteria for dyslexia because their difficulties in learning stem from other issues, or say, and there is comorbidity in terms of dyslexia. You often find students might also be ADHD, but their primary difficulty is more because of the dyslexia as opposed to attentional difficulties. And of course, the research right now, going in a little deeper, is the research right now and for many, many years is that dyslexia is not, is from, in utero. It's not, something that just kind of happens. But that's a really great, great question. And hopefully Haida will do a little bit more with that.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. And someone is asking about ELL. Is that something that's kind of in your experience, or there's certainly resources I can share about that?
Yes. I mean, I think that a structured literacy approach is great for any learner, to give students the tools to decode words that they don't know how to decode, or haven't been exposed to previously, is a really powerful tool. And I think a structured literacy approach does that for anybody, dyslexic or not. And so I think it could be great for a student who's ELL, because you're giving them all of the tools and all of the predictability that a dyslexic student needs, and you're giving it to somebody who also needs that predictability, who's learning something totally new. So it's not necessarily developed specifically for ELL learners, but I think it could be a really important part of any program.
And I think I'm not sure, but the question may be more as to whether or not, if with ELL, can you be diagnosed with dyslexia? And I can just kind of give a short answer to that. Dyslexia is not just in English. So if the person has difficulty in their, their first or their native language, it potentially could be dyslexia. So I'm not sure if that the question was directed to that or not, but that's one thing. And I'll put a resource in the chat. All right, thank you, Cindy. Carry on.
Okay, so let me switch back to the, sorry, I should have switched back before I was talking from my. Okay, so let's see. I guess we can go ahead. So that's multiple spellings. And one of the other really important parts of spelling and of course reading are suffixes, and I put them in that order because that would be the order I would start to introduce them in. Suffixes, prefixes, and roots. And a suffix is added to the end of a word, a base word or a root word, and it changes the meaning of the word. So say walk is the base word and ing is the suffix that means present tense or happening now. So walking, and then ing is the suffix. And so, or heat, let's say that's a better one. So heat is the base word. Ed means past tense or already happened. So heated. And then if I'm learning the prefix and I'm teaching students the prefix, re means again or back. And so reheated. And then roots are, they can stand alone more so than a base word can stand alone, but a root has more meaning to it. Well, not meaning, but usually has like a Latin or a Greek meaning to it. So for instance, tract. So tract means to pull or drag, or to pull or draw, excuse me. And so re is again or back. So retract, or say port. Port is to carry, and able is able to, so portable. And so I couldn't find any, I mean, there were lots of resources on the internet, and there are lots of books, but I didn't find anything that I wanted to use for the slides. So I'm giving you my Chegg cards. You can't download them, unfortunately, but there's about like 50 or 60 in each deck that you can use and practice. And maybe somebody who's super fast on the, who's got fast processing speed can check them and make sure that they work. But those are on Chegg, and you should be able to practice with them if you have a child that needs to practice, and you should be able to use them for instruction. And I encourage the kids to create, and we create Chegg accounts usually, and do flashcards too. The way that I would introduce that to spelling is I would introduce the prefix or the suffix. I would say, for instance, okay, boys and girls, today we're going to learn struct. And struct, I'd put it on the flashcard with them, and then struct means to build. And then we would generate words together. And so, the kids would come up with structure and construct and destruct, and then they would really enjoy that part of it. And then we could also create sentences around that. And then that becomes a really neat part of their vocabulary, and it really helps with their spelling because they're seeing things as units, and they don't necessarily have to, finger spell tract, but they know it a little bit more as one unit. If you have to do spelling and spelling lists, which I'm not really fond of, because I just remember growing up, and the spelling lists that I used to get were like random words in my reading text. And then I would have them for spelling, and then I wouldn't see them ever again. So I really encourage you as a teacher to, use spelling tests that really serve a purpose. Instead of, having the kids spell words that they're not really going to see very often, you can give them a learned word assessment from that How to Teach spelling book that I showed you earlier. And this is, so I would give them a big spelling test, and the kids, and the kids were not fond of that, but let me see if I can redo me. So the kids took a spelling test, and then from that sight word list, and then I picked words. I don't know, sorry, hold on, I could do this. Then I'll put it underneath the camera again. There you go. So we went through was, to, does, said, there, and these were the words that the child got wrong. And so those words become part of the word list that I give them. I give them 4 on the first 2 days of the week. They practice and they write it. Oh, sorry, where's that paper? They write it. I'll show you in a minute. They write it and they practice that word. So the first 2 on the first day of school when we're back, and then they get 2 more, and then they practice those words, and then they start to also practice any other words that I've given them. So every week they get 4 new words until we reach a spelling test of 20. And then I start cycling back and making little dates in the book to show, like, okay, so the last time I gave this one, okay, I gave Sally Sue this one on 10/15. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that, okay, I don't need to do this one for a while, but I haven't done this one lately. So I'm going to give this one to her on 10/29. So you cycle through the words, and the kids, practice those learned words. And in that way, I'm doing something that they're really going to use and that they're going to need all through school. And there's a really neat app called A+ Spelling. And so in A+ Spelling, you can create a word list. Hopefully you can see it. You can create a word list. So this is my learned words over here. And that I can add a learned word. I think you can see it. One of Sally Sue's new words is should. And it even records should. I should study for the test, should. And you can hopefully hear it. Should. There we go. Should. I should study for the test, should. And then you can go through and you add, and this is where you have to, as the teacher or the parent, make sure that they're using the word correctly, because you wouldn't want to give a child were and then they're saying where. And so then later on, the student can also practice the word where. Where should I put the box? Where? They can practice it, and they can even get it wrong, and then it will correct them. And then they can also take a test. Should. I should study for the test. Should. And then they can go through and where should I put the box? And then at the end, you can even email the teacher your results. In fact, that was my students' homework tonight, was to take a test and make sure that that they are studying their learned words. So I found that to be a much more useful time, much more useful and a better benefit for their time if we're studying learned words. And let me show you real quick how students are studying that. Of course, when they're younger, you really want a big kinesthetic. Sorry, I'll show you. Let me put myself back on. You'd rather have a big kinesthetic. So you would rather say said, S-A-I-D, said. S-A-I-D, said. But for 3rd and 4th graders, I found that it's okay. I write the word first. So I send home this with them, and it's on a much nicer paper. Oh, let me show you. Sorry. Hold that thought. If I had been in distance learning, I'd be really good at this, but I don't want to be in distance learning. So then the child writes said, S-A-I-D, said. S-A-I-D, said. And I explained to the child or to the students why we don't go like this, because that's going to be in your brain. All you're going to have is a bunch of S's, and that's not going to help you at all. So you want to link those individual letters to that word, which is why you have to say the word said at the end. So again, it would go S-A-I-D, said. S-A-I-D, said. And sometimes it's amazing. I can't use it as a reference anymore, but I usually say, like, if you trace it, it will come. So nobody knows the Field of Dreams anymore. So they just look at me like, what? But it's amazing when we go to spell in the spelling test, if they get it wrong, and I cover their word, and I say, they spelled goes, G-O-S-E. And I say, spell goes for me. They go G-O, and that repetition and that rote memory and that repetitiveness, which they really dislike, really kicks in, and they go G-O-E-S. And it's amazing. Just the light bulb goes on, and everything is, everything really just kind of clicks. And they see that, you know, oh, that repetitiveness that I hate is what my brain loves.
Cindy, if I can just jump in, because
Yes.
we're quickly
know, we're
running
coming
short
there.
on time. There's a question. Do you teach students to write in print or cursive? And then after you answer that, if you could jump to accommodations, text to speech, because that's
Yeah.
another area.
Sure will.
And resources. Perfect.
Sure
Thank
will.
you.
And that part's all explanatory. Anyway.
Yeah. Perfect.
So the most of my students, I have 3rd and 4th graders, and I do teach cursive. I think it's really important. I know a lot of schools on the mainland, and not necessarily, of course, assets, but a lot of schools on the mainland that specialize in students that have language-based learning disabilities or, you know, differences. They actually really start with cursive because it really not eliminates, but it's really hard to make a reversal in cursive. I mean, the B and the D are so very different. So reversals are much more difficult when you're doing cursive. So I think it's something that I'm teaching, and I think it's important to add back in. We also are doing typing, but going back to that cursive idea, I think it's really important to structure it and not just, you know, say those worksheets that show like, okay, we're going to learn A. If we're learning A, those traditional worksheets have aardvark and Alabama, and it has, you know, all sorts of other words in there. So what you really want to do is just teach the letters in the groupings of the strokes that match, like you would teach I and T and A, you know, and you would teach C because it has that same shape. But I think cursive is really important. I think we're missing something by letting it go. Okay.
Great, thank you.
So,
Okay, and now Kimball's gonna advance to your accommodation slide.
okie dokes. Am I doing something wrong?
I don't think so. There we go.
Okay.
Thanks.
So these,
Kimball, if
later
you could go to
you can
the
read those.
accommodation slide.
yeah, read those.
There
I
you
think
go.
they'll make
Perfect.
lots of sense. Okay. So text to speech, I think, is so important for a student that has language-based learning disability or differences, you know, whatever the current term is. Actually, by the way, the current term is disability. But anyway, audiobooks are not cheating. You know, Siri doesn't chastise you for, you know, asking for directions. She doesn't say, you should get a map. Bryant's sectional maps are better. You know, text to speech and listening to audiobooks fosters a love of reading. It aids in vocabulary development. You don't want children to be stuck at the vocabulary level that they're reading at. And you really want them to continue their general knowledge, because if they're only reading books at their reading level, they're not going to get to expand that. It really helps with appropriate phrasing and intonation, which later on, if you're practicing reading comprehension, that's an important part of, you know, understanding the text. Again, like I said earlier, their intellectual level is so important to speak to, because they're not going to want to continue to read if everything that they're reading is baby, what they would consider baby books. And then I think it's really important, you know, I use my calculator on my phone. You know, I'll let Siri read to me something if I'm super busy. I think, you know, setting accessibility preferences on your child's iPad, tablet, and computer are really important, because it makes things accessible, and it makes it, you know, it gives them some control and some autonomy, which is really important. The one in yellow, which is super duper important, and the law, accommodations on all assessments, tests, and quizzes give students a chance to demonstrate what they know and not what they can read. If you're giving your students, or you know, you're doing homeschooling and you're giving your child a math test, you don't want it to be a reading test. You know, you don't want it to be a word problem reading test. You want to know what math they can do. Some really great resources. That first link is from the University of Michigan, and they have a whole list. One of the ones I like is Voice Dream. I think that's what it is. Sorry. And that's one of the, they have one that's called Natural Speaker. I think that's what it was. Sorry. The no short-term memory. It's kind of like Dory. But that website was really great. Bookshare is free, I believe, if you have a print-based disability, and you just have to show them your the exceptionality from a licensed doctor or psychologist. And then Bookshare, I think, is federally funded, and so you can get audiobooks from that. The same thing, going back to Free Learning Ally is also, oh, that might not be free, sorry. That one, you do have to qualify for the print-based learning disability, but your child's teacher can also, or school can also document that you need audiobooks to further your learning. Super duper free. Hawaii State Public Library System, you can see they have 19,162 audiobook titles, and Libby by Overdrive is super duper easy to use. You do need your, oh, good, Kate Kritz is here. You do need your library card pin. Of course, there's Audible, Tumblebooks. Tumblebooks is free for educators. Oh wait, sorry, scratch that, erase that. Tumblebooks is not free for educators, but Epic is free for educators. You can create a class account and the kids can read during school hours, and parents can connect, and if they want to get a bigger, I think it's $4.99 a month, they can get a bigger selection of books. And then Audio Book Cloud and Team Book Cloud are part of Tumblebooks. But there's lots of opportunities for students to get text-to-speech resources. And then I love resources. Dibbles is a great resource for a school. The materials are free for the Dibbles 8. It allows you to test students in, well, depending on their grade level, but there's word reading and sight word reading and nonsense word reading for the younger students. And then there's a reading for comprehension for the older students, as well as for the younger students, and then a reading fluency. I have to admit, I'm not as well, this is something new for me, but I'm not as well versed with the younger grades, but I've been really pleased with the Dibbles, giving me lots of information about my students as readers. Nessie is really, has a whole slew of apps and programs for children with dyslexia. Read Naturally is something that we're using here at Assets. It's that premise that the more closely your speech approximates the way, the more closely your reading approximates your rate of speaking, the better your comprehension. And of course, the more exposure you have to print and to reading, you are getting that automaticity and that exposure to print that you wouldn't normally get if you were just saying like, go home and read. So students are practicing nonfiction readings, and then I'm listening to them on their cold, on their cold time. So I'm getting to know them as readers without any practice, and then I get to hear them on their past time after they've practiced it. And I mentioned before that Reading Rockets is really great. There's whole parts there where they're instructing you parents or you teachers how to help students decode words, and approaches that you can use that will help them be more successful. And then these are, I encourage you to, if you're looking for a program, these are honestly, oops, I forgot a link. The Ravo comes out of Marianne Wolf's work. I'll include that when the slides go out. I'll make sure the link is there. But these are other programs that teacher friends of mine and that I have used. that will really give you, if you decide to go that route, can give you some good support in teaching students with language-based learning disabilities. I'm not saying that, none of these are the silver bullet, or the magic elixir. I think the most important thing I would say is, look for training that you can take, and then find, of course, if you're looking for someone to tutor your child, find somebody who is trained and who has, experience. And then, oh, there's Rava. Whoops, gotta fix that. And these are other resources that can give you ideas on how to help your child. The one on the bottom, the Orton Gillingham International, that's Ron Yoshimoto, and that's who trained me, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But so he's left assets for a while now, and he's doing that. So shout out to Ron.
And Kathy, we're going to give you the 1 minute warning. I'm sorry, Cindy, we're going to give you the 1 minute warning.
Okay. And these are
Thanks.
authors you can't go wrong on. Ta-da! Done on that. If you'd like to join me on the quest, I'm sure you're already on the quest, actually, because you're here. But I created an Edmodo class that we can connect on, and you can join, and it's really neat. We can post, and we can talk to each other, and we can ask questions, and we can give suggestions, because I know I did all the talking, but I bet you guys have super duper ideas too, and I would love to learn from you. So thank you. I really enjoyed being with you. And back to you, Margaret.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm actually going to toss it to Kathy, but before I do that, thank you so much, Cindy. You're like amazing Wonder Woman. And I will just say, because I'll answer these couple questions. Yes, the recording, and yes, the slides will be made available once, we just need to do a little cleaning up with those. So we'll take care of that and email you all when it's available. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Margaret.
go ahead, Kathy.
And thank you, Cindy. Your energy, your expertise, your effective strategies, your resources this evening have been tremendous. So we are very, very grateful for your time this evening, and just everything you've shared with our educators, parents, community on this platform tonight. So we are honored to have you, and thank you so very, very much for everything. You're amazing. Before we do officially end, though, we will ask Margaret to share some additional information about future events and staying connected with HIDA.
Okay, perfect. And I'll just say right now, because I know, we're at time, and if you need to leave, we thank you so much for joining us. And stay tuned. I'm going to be sending an email by the end of the week with a link to the survey, and we really appreciate if you could take the time to answer that and give us some feedback. And then also I will follow up with the slides and the recording when that's available. And finally, I see there's a couple other questions coming in. You are welcome to stay on after we get through just a few housekeeping announcements, and Cindy will stay on for a bit to answer those. So if you'd like, please stay on, and we'll get to those. Okay, so what I wanted to, Kimball, if you could just go to the slide that says keep informed. There you go, perfect, awesome. And for some reason, Kathy, I see you on the screen. I don't see my, I love to see you.
How's that?
No, I still see you. I don't know why.
You might still be in speaker view. So-
Okay.
I won't talk.
Okay, I'll just go here. Okay, so I just want to say, if you want to find out and hear about future HIDA events, then please do sign up for our free electronic newsletter. And we'd also, if we'd love if you'd consider making a donation. We are a nonprofit, and as some of you who've been around a while, we do a lot of things where we don't charge anything. I mean, we have such wonderful volunteers, Cindy, Kathy, Kimball, you know, there's a few right in front of you. There's many more. And, but if you'd kindly consider making a donation. And we actually have a new exciting initiative, a fun and Ono one that I'd like to just tell you about that just hot off the presses. It's called Lecco for Charity. So Lecco is Belgian chocolate spread, actually made in Belgium. I met the owners. One of them is from Belgium. So this is a fundraiser they're doing for the International Dyslexia Association across the US and Canada. And we, you know, as a branch, if you designate us with Read Hawai'i, and I'm not really seeing it on my screen, Kimball. Oh, you know what? Oh, there we go. Okay. If you designate our branch with right down there, it says Read Hawai'i, and that's the link, leccoforcharity.com IDA. You'll get some really Ono spread and also hideable benefit as well. So, you know, with the holidays just around the corner, please think of this as an option. And then for our next event coming up, we have a webinar on November 17th. And this is for college disability services and accommodations. And we're thrilled to have Vanessa Ito, who's the director of the Kokua program at UH Manoa. And so she's going to be sharing information on, you know, what are the differences between accommodations once you get at the post-secondary level versus at K-12. So tune in for that. That'll be a really, really informative webinar as well. We have the link on there, but again, if you sign up for our e-news, you can get that information as well. And please know that, like all of you, we continue to monitor the pandemic, and we'll certainly let you know when we get back to in-person events. But for now, we're going to keep going virtual. And then a couple more things I just want to tell you about membership. We are a membership organization, and we'd again love if you'd want to be part of a global organization that makes a difference to support individuals with dyslexia, their families, teachers. When you join IDA, $50 a year as a parent or teacher, you automatically become a member of the Hawaii branch. And again, that's another way, a portion of your dues do go directly to our branch. So thank you for that. And finally, here is some links to our website, our email. Also, we're on Facebook and Instagram. And I'll give just a little shout out for Dyslexia Awareness Month. We've been posting on Facebook, Instagram, and our e-news. We're going to be giving out a couple of prizes next week. So if you want to get in on the fun, check out our Facebook or Instagram page. I'll be posting something, our final question for Dyslexia Awareness Month. I'll be posting it this Friday. So check that out. Thank you again, Cindy. Wonderful, wonderful. Lots of great comments from people. There were a couple more questions, but we're going to sign off for the evening, but anybody who wants to stay on, I know Cindy, you said you'd stay on a few minutes. For those of you who need to leave, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening and watch for my emails with some follow-up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Cindy, I do see a hand from Angela. Angela, you're welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Hey, Cindy.
Hi.
Echo. That was a really great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
And I was wondering about I'm very new to like dyslexia and developmental disabilities. So I think my student may have dyslexia, and it was what kind of prompted me to sign up for the seminar today. But the thing is, it's kind of foreign to me. so I learned a lot of techniques today, but to kind of like recognize the dyslexia, could you describe it a little for us? Like she can read some words, but then she won't be able to pronounce some words or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I can kind of, I hope it's all good. I can kind of cheat because I know there's someone here who's a psychologist. And she turned her camera on, so I'm hoping that's an indication that she can, because I mean, honestly, I mean, I know the signs, but I don't have I'm not somebody who diagnoses it. And I know this person's not going to diagnose your student, but you know, you want to rule out certain things, you know, whether it's, you know, English as a second language or, you know, dialect, or, you know, you want to, usually it's, you know, that they don't have that sound symbol relationship that somebody who is, you know, neurotypical would have, you know, like somebody who is neurotypical would be, you know, they'd see should, and that wouldn't, you know, necessarily stump them. Is that okay? Dr. Kritz, if I throw it to you? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think if you're really worried about the student, then you need to get an assessment done. Not that I'm trying to make some more money, but by someone, because you need to know
It's
what
not my
this
student.
person.
And in Chinese culture, disability is seen as a weakness. And I myself am a disabled adult. I don't have a developmental disability, but I became disabled. So it's a little bit different. But in the Chinese culture, parents, it's a little bit personal. Parents kind of like won't recognize disability and they'll pretend it doesn't exist. And so I'm trying to help my student because I know of the culture, and it could be an English as a second language thing so that's what I'm trying to distinguish, like if it is that or if it is dyslexia. Yeah.
I'll just jump in. I posted in the chat a resource that everybody could, where did it go? Yeah, that everybody could take a look at, Dyslexia Basics, that have some of the signs that you could also look at. But yeah, Dr. Kritz is absolutely correct. I mean, the only way to know for sure is to have a professional, you know, comprehensive evaluation.
Okay.
But yeah, I did. Yeah, but maybe take a look at some of the signs, and there's other resources at our website that you know, you could take a look at as well. And by all means, feel free to, you know, email me directly, and I can share some other resources with you.
And you know, although I know, you know, in terms of like, you know, public education and you know, attending a specialized school, you know, or you would have to, not a specialized school, like assets, if we can meet your needs, you don't necessarily have to have a diagnosis. But, you know, going back to the cultural part, you know, that's something to be, of course, really aware of and really sensitive to, but also, you know, not putting it to the parents, but, you know, helping the parents to understand that, you know, meeting that child, meeting their potential really depends on getting the help that they need. You know, and it's not necessarily about a diagnosis or, you know, saying that they are dyslexic, but, you know, this is what could help, you know, your child, you know, reach their potential. That, you know, hopefully that would help the parents see that it's not about, you know, the stigma or the, you know, the disability.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I also put in the chat. Sorry, I have to unmute myself. I put in the chat. Oh, sorry, I know I keep going in and out, in and out. Sorry. I put in the chat about where you could get testing. We have a list. Yeah. And then there's a couple more questions. Okay. So there was one.
Can I ask?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kate. Yeah.
Can I real quick, Cindy? So my question is about spelling. I
Yes, yes.
see a bunch of kids who have working memory and long-term memory challenges. So, their IQ, their verbal might be 120 and their working memory is 86.
Oh, yes.
And they just cannot hold the spelling in their head. So in those cases, I do recommend, learning spelling rules is important and blah, blah, blah. But really, I'm saying get them a computer and let them use spell check. And is that reasonable, or you think we still just should continue to hammer spelling?
I think when the pendulum swings one way or the other too far, we lose some of our ability to do, things that we still need to be able to do. You still need to be able to write a note, and you still need someone to be able to read your writing and, and basically get your spelling. I mean, I definitely, we also are teaching typing, and, I think it is really important, learn what you can, especially so that a computer spelling checker can recognize what you're writing, get your vowel sounds in there, get it really close so that you can then, utilize the tool. I think it's also really important to use I know we're talking about writing. I kind of stayed away from that, but I think dictation is really important. It's difficult though, because I'm finding so many of my students have speech difficulties, and it's not, the free, dictation services and even the ones on the iPad aren't so great. So I think you need to have a little bit of everything. I certainly don't think you should grade spelling until I know I'm doing spelling tests, but if they get it wrong, there's nothing punitive. It's just, something we're trying to review. But I think it's really, sorry, buggies. I think it's really important to, continue, like you said, continue to try to learn the rules, continue trying to apply them. But in the end, I think accommodations and the technology is going to take them the rest of the way.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks very much. It was great.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Kate.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
There's a couple more questions so at what grade level do you teach OG rules?
Oh, as soon as you can. if you have a student, actually, and like I said earlier, I think OG and a structured literacy approach is great at any age and for anybody who's dyslexic or not. But going back to, that specific population, as soon as you're, when you're naming letters, K says, K, so you're teaching, K, kite, you can kind of see behind me, there's the word wall, or not the word wall, but the sounds and the keyword and the letter. I think from the get-go, you can start Orton Gillingham, and you can start, connecting sounds and letters, and not only Orton Gillingham. I didn't talk much at all about this, but phonemic awareness is so important. You really want to have, rhyming skills, and you want students to be able to segment sounds. And there's a whole, this is where you definitely need, you need that piece of the training, and then that experience. But I think phonemic awareness, like some of the things that we do, just as general educators, rhyming words, like, okay, if this is mop, which word also has the same sound in the beginning? Is it, is it Tom? Is it, map? Or I don't know, I'm making it up. So, but phonemic awareness and rhyming and segmenting sounds and manipulating sounds is such a big part of everything in terms of Orton Gillingham.
So is that started, is it taught in kindergarten at Assets?
I believe so. I know we're testing for phonemic awareness. So I know that the kindergarten teacher I should double check, but I can't imagine that she's not.
Okay, so when you say, okay, and then the other question is, with cursive being so beneficial to those with learning and writing disabilities, why was it removed from curriculum in schools?
Well, I mean, that's a whole
Right.
big ball
That
of
might be another, I mean, we could
Another
only speak
seminar.
to our, it's interesting because I'll just say my daughter, who was in your class, is very artistic and she loved cursive because she didn't need to lift her pencil off the page, right? So her cursive was actually better than her printing.
I can say, I just know from experience I mean, they cursive really helps in note taking because a lot of people write that mixture of cursive and print. I think it was just, when push came to shove, it was, first went the arts and then the music and then the dance and then the cursive. I think it's, that was, one of those choices, but hopefully it makes its way back in. I think it's something that we're missing.
Yeah, it's a lost art for sure. Okay, there's another question, and this one I think Kathy may have provided some information in the chat. Does a DOE provide services for Keiki with dyslexia if they attend a private school? So was that what you put in the chat, Kathy?
Yes, there's a direct link to the private school participation and the
Okay,
program
perfect.
that's, available for students with eligibility.
Thank
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. I think, and then I did provide a link to we have a list of private psychologists, including Kate Kritz, who was on the webinar, who do testing. So I did put that link in there. It says tutoring for dyslexia, but at that link, you can also find our resource list for testing. So I think that about wraps it up for this evening. That's kind of like the post-webinar party. Thank you for joining us and staying on. We appreciate you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
It was
you.
great to
Thank
meet you for the
Bravo,
evening.
Sydney.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Everyone.
And if the team would just hang on for a bit, but
Sure.
I could actually stop the recording, right? Let's see, stop.